Welcome to Taking Up Space, the podcast with conversations exploring what it means to inhabit our bodies fully without shame or apology and reconnect with our innate wisdom to find healing and body liberation. I'm your host, Cassie Krajewski, a licensed clinical social worker, certified sex therapist, and certified body trust practitioner. For over 10 years, I've worked with women and marginalized folks to reclaim their bodies, their inner knowing, and their lives in a world that often seeks to diminish their voices and experiences. In this podcast, we'll unpack the societal norms and expectations that interrupt our embodiment, like trauma, oppression, illness and pain, and the social constructs of gender, race, sexuality, beauty, health, and weight. My hope is that through this podcast, we'll learn to drop into our bodies and give ourselves permission to occupy space, physically, emotionally, relationally, and intellectually, with more confidence and authenticity. Join us as we challenge societal norms, explore what it means to find wholeness and reclaim our right to take up space as an act of resistance and body liberation. While this podcast might feel therapeutic, it is not psychotherapy and doesn't constitute a therapist-client relationship. This is a good time to mention, too, that this podcast will at times use adult language, so listener discretion is advised. If you are interested in diving in deeper, make sure you check out my online shop where I'm currently offering my Taking Up Space workbook for free. This workbook includes thought-provoking exercises, reflective journal prompts, and actionable strategies that can help guide you towards a deeper understanding of yourself and your needs and cultivate a more profound sense of embodiment and your own liberation. You can find this workbook and other resources at my website. That's inneratlastherapy.com/shop. Hello, welcome to Taking Up Space. Whoa, okay, so this is the first episode that I'm recording after the podcast has already launched, and just, wow, I am really blown away from the positive receptivity of the podcast so far, your ratings, your reviews, the new folks who are reaching out on Instagram. I am so excited that the podcast is reaching so many of you already, and some of you are already benefiting from these conversations that we're having here. It truly means so much that you're here and listening. So thanks. And if you haven't, I encourage you to consider following, giving a review or a rating. It's really helping this podcast have a wider net of reach in these early days of the podcast. So thanks, everybody. Let's get into today's episode. So our guest today is Dr. Lisa Folden, a pioneering physical therapist and a staunch advocate for weight inclusivity. So if any of you have been to physical therapy before and you exist in a larger body, my guess is that you've encountered an incredible amount of weight stigma and anti-fat bias within that space. When healthcare providers like physical therapists are influenced by fat phobia, they often oversimplify diagnoses by attributing a wide range of health issues solely to a person's weight. And this can lead to a lack of thorough examination and investigation into the root causes or symptoms. So, for example, in traditional physical therapy, a person presenting with joint pain may be told to lose weight without any further evaluation. And that can contribute to potentially missing diagnoses like arthritis, autoimmune conditions, or other underlying health problems. And that's why I'm so glad to have Dr. Lisa here, as she is confronting and pushing back on weight stigma and anti-fat bias and really ushering in a new movement of weight-inclusive physical therapy. So Dr. Lisa explores how treatment plans based on weight loss as the primary or sole intervention are ineffective and unsustainable. And so focusing exclusively on it ignores all these other important aspects of health, like mental health and social determinants of health as examples. Because of this ineffective approach, there can be little to no improvement or maybe temporary improvement. And so that just contributes to ongoing poor health outcomes for those existing in a larger body. Dr. Lisa is so unique because many healthcare providers receive insufficient training on weight inclusive practices and the complexities of weight and health. You know, our medical system wants to conflate weight equals someone's health status. And the reality and the research tells us that that's simply not true. But the lack of education of medical providers perpetuates the cycle of fat phobia and lazy medicine. And these providers are just not equipped with the knowledge or tools to really offer really good care to people of all sizes, but specifically those in larger bodies. And so this is why I'm so excited that Dr. Lisa is here and all of the work that she's doing to not only help her clients and her patients, but also the ways that she's being advocate for physical therapists and the profession with her weight inclusive approach. So here's a little bit more about Dr. Lisa and more about this approach she takes to her work. So Dr. Lisa owns Healthy Fit Physical Therapy and Wellness Consultants in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she provides trauma-informed and weight-inclusive care to clients in diverse bodies and those in eating disorder recovery. As a health at every size ambassador and movement expert, Dr. Folden assists clients seeking healthier lifestyles. Her weight-neutral approach encourages intuitive eating, joyful movement, body acceptance, and breaking up with toxic diet culture. Dr. Lisa is also a mom of 3, published author and speaker whose goal is to see as many people as possible living their best lives without worrying about their weight. I really loved hearing Dr. Lisa's perspective on movement and what it means to reclaim movement and find joyful movement for all of us. So thanks for listening, and here's my conversation with Dr. Lisa. Hey there, Dr. Lisa. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Hi, Cassie. Thank you for having me. And I am excited as well. I love talking about this stuff, so I could do it all day.
Perfect. Let's start. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so my name's Dr. Lisa Folden, and I am a physical therapist by trade. What I do with my licensing and my education is a little different than what you may be familiar with physical therapists doing,
Yeah.
but I work in a setting that I have created for myself. I own my private practice. It's called Healthy Fit Physical Therapy and Wellness Consultants. And we are in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the United States. And what I do is I offer weight inclusive and trauma informed and eating disorder informed care. So
Mhm.
I often see clients who are in recovery from eating disorders. I work very
Mhm.
closely with mental health therapists and dietitians in that
Yeah.
area. And I also work with people who live and navigate the world in large bodies, which are often
Mhm.
also people in eating disorder recovery, despite the
Mhm.
myths that we see on the internet.
Totally.
And I practice from a trauma informed lens. So I help people heal from their illnesses, their injuries, without the toxicity, fat phobia, and the weight stigma that goes along with it.
Yeah.
And then the other side of my business is health, wellness, and body image coaching. So I work with private clients all over the world and
Mhm.
help them make peace in their bodies, resume movement. A lot of these people are also in large bodies and
Yeah.
or eating disorder recovery, and I help them actualize health for themselves without the oppressive toxicity of diet culture
Mhm.
telling them they need to look a certain way. So
Mhm.
very fulfilling in what I do. I get to work in hybrid settings. So I'm in the clinic twice a week, and then I'm home virtually seeing patients twice a week. And I do a lot of speaking and teaching and training and podcasting and trying to just get more awareness to these issues
Yeah.
related to our bodies and our body image and weight stigma and those things. But I absolutely love what I do. And it's been a work in progress and a long time coming. I've been practicing
Mhm.
17 years, but I've only
Mm.
been in this world for the last 3 or 4.
Yeah. Oh, I just am so excited to talk with you and unpack more of what this looks like because,
Yeah.
as I've shared with you already before we hit record, I have not met a weight
Mhm.
inclusive, HAES aligned physical therapist before. And I think there's just such important work that you are
Yeah.
doing with folks and broaching this conversation and getting some more awareness, not only
Mhm.
with the clients that you work with, but also in the provider community of what this looks
Mhm.
like. Thanks for doing what you do. It's really such an honor to talk with you and share a little bit more of your message.
Well, thank
Uh,
you. And you're welcome. And I love this work. So I feel like it gives me something too. So,
yeah.
I feel honored to do it, honestly.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's really
Mhm.
sacred work to do.
Yeah.
How does your own body story impact the work that you do?
Oh gosh, that's the reason I ended up here because I
Mm,
was traditionally trained, like most physical therapists
yeah.
are. And I believed that weight was one of the most prominent keys to health. I
Mm,
believe that larger meant less healthy, I believed that to get healthier, you needed to focus on weight loss. And so,
Mm,
as a physical therapist who valued health, I was a runner, I was a dancer, I did 25Ks running, I did all types of things. I stretched my physical limitations. My father
mm,
was a bodybuilder, fitness competitor when I was growing
mhm,
up. And
mhm.
so I saw the very toxic side of fitness and I thought that was healthy.
Yeah.
So I
Uh-huh.
treated my body poorly.
Mm,
I had a negative body image the vast majority of my life,
mm,
even though I always laugh, and I see this with every client. We look back at photos of ourselves and we're
mhm.
like, huh, I thought I was so large then. I was so unhappy in that
Uh-huh.
body. And
Uh-huh.
that's 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds ago.
Right.
But what I understood after evolving over the years and seeing my story in retrospect, never being happy in my body,
Mm,
dieting, doing extreme things. The last extreme point I went to was following the birth of my third child after I'd stopped nursing him and
mm,
I gained weight. And then I just went a downward spiral. So
mm,
7 days a week exercising, some days two a
mhm.
days, eating
Yeah.
all my food from small containers for portion control, and
Mhm.
then losing weight and then easing off of that lifestyle just a little bit, like 5 days a week instead of seven, gaining all the weight back and then feeling horrible about myself. And
Yeah.
so looking back through that, the only thing that stopped me was I had to get a cog in that wheel because I was repeating that cycle over and over.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
was finding the book Health at Every Size by Dr. Bacon. That book,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was the science. It was the science I needed because I couldn't
Makes
start
sense
with
with
the
your
woo woo.
training. Mhm.
I needed the science and it was remarkable, so well written, so much good research, so much good information in there. And that led me into the world of HAES and all of the other authors and
Um,
contributors and information. And I feel like I got a PhD in that because that's all I was doing was reading,
mhm.
listening to podcasts, learning things. Of course, that I found intuitive eating from that. And it just changed my entire life. And so since I had to
Mhm.
change how I was living, I couldn't practice in the way that I
Yeah.
had previously. I had a whole weight loss program. It was called 15
Yeah.
Days of Fitness, and I have no nutrition training. And I was telling people what to eat for 15
Mm,
days. Insane,
mhm,
but I was
mhm.
doing it and I believed in it because I thought that was health. And so once my eyes were opened,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't unsee it and I had to shift everything. So it
Mm,
has literally impacted. I can't, there is not an aspect of my life that this knowledge has not impacted from
mhm,
personal to professional.
mm,
And that makes it a lot, but I'm so grateful because it
mm,
changed everything. It really did.
mm. What a significant pivot. And like you read Health at Every Size, the book, and it was like called you in, like you knew
Yeah,
there was something really true about this.
right.
But a huge pivot. I'm wondering when you did make this change over to weight inclusive practice as a physical therapist, what was the receptivity of that, maybe from your colleagues or people in your life to make that change after you were known in all of these
Right.
other domains of traditional models of health and wellness?
Right. There was a lot of silence, right? Because people were very
Mm,
confused. I know on social media, I was still trying to get my footing, specifically on Instagram, because that's where I hang out a lot. But I was still trying to get my footing on what my message was on Instagram. And it was very disjointed. But when I made that
mm,
shift, I saw a lot of people, it gained interest, right? Because they were like, what? But then it turned into a lot of trolling and arguing and
yeah.
unfollowing. And
Oh,
so it was
yeah.
nasty.
Right. Mm,
But I'm grateful for that because then I found my people because my message became
yeah.
very clear and my niche in my practice became clear because for years I was a generalist. I saw everybody for everything. I'm talking
Mm,
pediatrics to geriatrics,
mm,
all the things, neurological conditions, orthopedic conditions of the bones and muscles. I saw everything. And so I always had trouble honing in on what I wanted to do because I didn't want to get bored. And I didn't have this philosophy that I felt so attached to. I loved physical therapy. I loved movement and exercise and those types of things. But I could never find something that was like, oh, that's the thing that does it for me.
yeah.
And when I learned about diet culture and how I had been a slave and a victim to it for
Mm,
basically my whole life,
mm,
and I recognized how that played into the development of eating disorders, how that played into people's health actually worsening, how it played into this grand conspiracy. It's really what I consider it. I consider it a
mhm,
conspiracy of capitalism, diet culture, the
mm.
patriarchy, all these negative
Yeah.
systems
Right.
that
Mhm.
reinforce these behaviors in us and our poor body image and how we feel about ourselves and how we inadvertently feel about others. I was like, oh, I can't participate anymore and I have to take a stand. And so then fat activism came up. I learned about health at every size. I joined as the Association for
Mhm.
Size, Diversity, and Health. And I was just like, okay, everything's got to be different. So, yeah, some people were very turned off. I still have people turned off, but I created a community on social media for
Yeah.
sure
Mhm.
and in real life because I relocated my practice into a physical space with dietitians and mental health therapists who are
Mhm.
anti-diet and who
Mhm.
focus on trauma-informed care and care for
Mhm.
people in eating disorder recovery. It was like the stars aligned for me, so it didn't really matter that I didn't get quite the reception I would have hoped for,
Yeah.
especially not in my field because physical therapists are very
Right.
new to the table with eating
Yes.
disorders, with fat activism, with the anti-diet movement. So that's
Yeah.
fine. I don't mind being one of the first. It's okay.
Yeah, that's why I was so excited to talk to you. I found you through social media, so you've really cultivated such a
Ah,
beautiful space there, and
thank you.
just to initiate this conversation for all kinds of folks to
Mm-hmm.
encounter and really reflect on their own relationship with movement and like
Yeah.
those myths that we get from diet culture that get played out in the movement space or in
Right.
specifically in physical therapy spaces too.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of so many of my clients who are told to go to physical therapy and lose weight to heal whatever condition.
Right. Right.
Are
Right.
you encountering a lot of that in the folks that you're working with? Or are you finding most people are coming to you knowing that you're weight inclusive, knowing that you're offering health at every size care, and so they are
Yeah.
kind of in that process with you?
Now, because I've been in the space for a few years, yes, I'm getting more people that are specifically coming to me or specifically referred to me because
Okay.
of my position. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean they haven't come from other medical spaces where they have been told
Mhm.
otherwise. So, yes, I see that a lot. I have many people who come to me with a lot of shame and feeling like, if
Mhm.
I could just lose weight, this wouldn't
Mhm.
be a problem. If I could just, and it's, you are not to blame for your diabetes. You are not to blame for your joint pain. You are not to blame for any medical condition that you acquire. We don't have the control that we have been taught to believe that we do over our health and the way that our bodies look or the how much we weigh. But diet culture and unfortunately is reinforced in the medical community.
Mhm.
They really teach us that if something's wrong or you don't like it, you can fix it. Take this pill, do
Mhm.
this workout, restrict your calories, and you'll be great. And it's a
Mhm.
lie. And it's very lazy medicine because let me just say this.
Yeah, yes, lazy medicine.
It's lazy
Mhm.
medicine. So for anyone listening, because people, I say this and people don't believe it, right? But that's fine. You don't have to believe that weight loss is not the end all be all or the thing that you should be seeking. If you want to seek weight loss because you think it's going to take care of all your
Mhm.
problems and improve your health, I believe in
Mhm.
body autonomy and you do that.
Mhm.
But the statistics are very clear that intentional weight loss is so unlikely to be successful. I'm talking like 97 to 99% unsuccessful. So, as a medical provider, to tell someone just lose weight, go to physical therapy, or go on this diet, or take this shot and lose weight, and it will help X, Y, and Z, and you'll be good. It's a lie. And it's statistically
Mhm.
speaking, in science, we don't prescribe treatment options that have such a low success rate. We just
Right,
don't
right.
because then we're setting our clients up for failure. And what comes with that is more shame because whenever a diet fails, we don't think this diet sucked. We think
Mhm.
I sucked.
Yeah,
I don't have enough
yeah, it gets
willpower.
internalized.
I'm not motivated enough. And so then we hate ourselves, we
Mhm.
treat ourselves poorly, and we repeat the cycle over and over again instead of blaming the actual problem. And that's the diet from the beginning. So
Mhm.
that's my beef. And that's what I see a lot of my clients. Some of them are moving away from diet culture, some of them are various points on that
Mhm.
journey, but almost all of them have been told that the bulk of their issues are related to
Mhm.
their weight. And they often come to me with the myth that, oh, I have knee pains. It's because I put on so much weight. And we have to like get that myth out of their
Deconstruct
heads.
that.
That is
Mhm. I've
not
heard that
true.
one so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's not how our
Mhm.
bodies work. If that were the case, we wouldn't tell people to progressively load their bodies with weights to strengthen their joints and muscles.
Mhm.
That is counterproductive to what we're saying when someone gains weight and we say, "Oh, that's why your knees hurt." No, your knees probably have some sort of dysfunction. There may be a
Mhm.
cartilage issue, a ligamentous issue, a muscular issue, an imbalance, a weakness, or arthritis, things that happen to all of us. The
Mhm.
higher correlation to joint pain in our middle age years is really contact sports. It's not weight gain. If you have a history of
Yeah.
contact sports, you're more likely to have joint pain and significant issues as you get
Mm,
older, not if you gain weight, because that's silly. Our
mhm,
bones are built based on the weight that they endure. So
mhm.
I like you said, deconstructing those myths for people and taking the blame and the shame from
Yeah,
them. That's the biggest
yeah.
issue. People come to me feeling shameful because they feel they've done something or not done something that has
Mhm.
resulted in their medical condition. And now they're coming to me to fix it and to chastise them. And I don't do that. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it's an off-ramp to this whole cycle, right? To, like,
yeah.
take out the shame and blame and find a different way for you to
Right.
connect with your body, pursue health in your own way that you're
Yes.
defining it versus how the medical system or diet culture defines it for you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm. So, I'm wondering, you're in North Carolina offering this
Hmm.
amazing treatment and clinic, and then you coach across the world, but I'm curious for folks listening if they're looking for a weight inclusive physical therapist. Do you have any recommendations for how they might do that? Because I don't know of
So,
if there's like a
yeah.
platform or a community of you all.
So we're working on it. So
Okay.
funny story, a few weeks ago, that trend that was going on social media where it's, I'm a dog groomer. Of course I blank blank,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I'm a physical.
yeah.
So I did one of my own saying, I'm a weight inclusive physical therapist. Of course and I had this series of things. And then I had several physical therapists reach out to me from that reel. And about four of them I had already been in touch with. So
Hmm.
if you had asked me a month ago, like, how many weight inclusive physical therapists do you know? I would have been like, maybe four, maybe five, because
Mm.
we found each other slowly through the internet. But we decided to do the reel together. And then a few of them had another contact or two. So I think it ended up being seven of us in the video, if I'm not mistaken.
Amazing.
And from the reel that we created, the collaborative reel, we had at least 15 to 20 more physical therapists jump on and say, hey, I'm a weight inclusive provider as well.
Um,
And they weren't all in the US, but I would say the list in my head and on my Instagram is growing from about 4 or 5 to maybe 25 to 30. And one of the other therapists who's been doing this work for a while, she and I are working on creating a platform, creating a database and directory, and creating opportunities for
amazing.
collaboration. So that will be, I don't know, hopefully we meet next week. So hopefully we'll get something together this summer. But that up until that time, nothing really other than the Association for Size Diversity and Health
Mhm,
does have a provider list.
mhm.
Now, the last time I checked, I think I was still the only physical therapist on there.
Okay.
And some people, just because some people are anti-diet and weight inclusive doesn't necessarily mean that they are part of ASDA or necessarily affiliate with ASDA. So that's a thing. But you can always check there to see, because the list is growing daily. People do sign up,
Mhm,
and there's just a little vetting process to make sure you are weight
mhm.
inclusive and you understand the principles of HAES, and they align for you in your practice. But we're working on it. That's a long answer to say no, but we're working on it. And then until then, you can check ASDA's listserv to see if you find something.
Yeah. It's just the
Yeah.
power of social media, I think, in just
Yeah.
these connections that can be made and how you can come together, collaborate, and join
Mhm.
forces for that advocacy.
Absolutely.
What are some of your other plans with your advocacy in your work? 'Cause I know this is a big component that you're really leaning into here.
Yeah, so I've done lots of things. I do talks all the time, podcasts. I have a journal on Amazon. It's the Body Respect Journal. I try to contribute in areas that I can, but what I have been feeling led to do is to create more specific content and or training in the realm of diversity,
Mm,
equity, and inclusion, but
mm,
primarily around fat activism, weight inclusivity, being knowledgeable of your internalized weight stigma, fat phobia,
mm.
so that we can address it in medical settings and in workplace
Yeah.
settings, and eventually all the settings. I am a size, and I have been to two restaurants in the last 2 months whose chairs had the metal edges to them, like almost
Uh-huh.
an armrest, that dug into the side of my body and made it
Uh,
literally uncomfortable for me to sit and have a meal with friends.
uh.
And that's insane in a country where the average size person is like a 16, 18.
Yeah,
So
right.
to not be able to comfortably sit, that these chairs are even made, it's like mainstream, fill my restaurant with this chair. So a level of activism that I want to contribute to, first in the medical setting, because that is to me the more pressing place.
Yeah, and you have such
People,
influence there. You speak the
right.
language. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
can and have these conversations, but because these are the settings where people in large bodies, you know, when they are treated unfairly and poorly, we're talking about decreasing their life expectancy and their
Mhm.
quality of life. People
Mhm.
avoid the doctor's office because they
Yeah.
know what they're going to be told. And so that has to be addressed. It's Yes, we want to sit in restaurants comfortably, but I want people to live and thrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to really
Yeah.
start with some
Mm.
sort of training and workshopping to help medical communities understand the importance of addressing the fat phobia and the weight stigma
Mhm.
that's internalized and
Mhm.
systemic
Mm.
in the way your clinics are set up, your offices are set up, and the advice that you give to the patients and the
Yeah.
furniture that you have and the equipment and tools. There was a whole thing during COVID from a fat activist who I follow and love, where she talked about the needles not being long enough for people with bigger arms or
Yes, the
more adipose
vaccine.
tissue. It's like you
Yeah.
can't even get the vaccine. It's like
Mhm.
who
Yes.
cares? We're not going to worry about them. It doesn't make sense. We have to take care of
Yeah.
all of our people, big, small, short,
Mhm.
tall, old, young. I
Mhm.
had a little bit of a back and forth on social media with a trauma nurse. And this is a slight detour, but not really. But I posted about why it's important for my practice to be weight inclusive and just shared some tips and some pointers. And she said something to the fact of your opinion on fat people would change if you were a trauma nurse like me in the ER trying to save their lives when they've been shot or something. And it just rocked
Whoa.
my soul. And I
Ah.
responded to her. I said, I understand that your job is probably so difficult and so challenging and so overwhelming, and things that are so difficult every day. But I want to be clear, we are medical professionals and we are called to do no harm and to
Mm.
give our very best care. I don't care if it's more inconvenient. I don't care if it's harder. In the
Yeah.
same way, someone commented on that post, in the same way, a premature baby who's the size of your thumb
Right.
is harder to work on because of their size and their needs. It doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean you don't give it. It doesn't mean you don't walk in excellence for these people.
Mhm.
And that because we're okay assuming that people being fat is their problem, it's their fault, and
Mhm.
it is a problem, we will take the human out of them and
Mhm.
act sorry, this is too hard for me. No, that's
Yeah.
never okay. It's
Mhm.
never okay. I don't
Mhm.
care if it's hard to do, you still have to try to do it. And
Mhm.
that's my stance. And that's why I want to start with that diversity, equity, inclusion in the medical field so that they understand it is your responsibility to give the very best care
Yeah.
to every single person, especially this marginalized group of people who have been
Yeah.
mistreated for far too long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big piece for me too, around adding body size to your intersectional lens as it relates
Yeah.
to DEI work or anti-racism work.
Yes.
It's so critical and a piece that's really been lacking. And I think specifically in healthcare and medical care, it's really been so,
Yeah. It's the discrimination we allow. It's the
yeah,
discrimination no one really speaks up about and it's not
yeah,
okay. It's
yeah,
not okay.
yeah.
So I'm happy to speak up about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what you create and generate in this space for training for other providers because I think this could be we need more folks in your line of work to do this in addition to all the other treatment providers. We all have our own role, I think, in this
Right.
movement
Yeah,
and repairing and undoing the harm that so many of our folks have experienced.
absolutely.
So I know you work a lot with folks in larger bodies, folks who have a history of eating disorder and recovery from an eating disorder. I'm curious,
Mhm.
what are some of the pieces or issues or challenges that you're tending to work with people on in the physical therapy space?
Oh, the biggest piece on the physical therapy side of things, like I said, it's addressing the shame and the blame. So,
Yeah.
getting that because it's really hard to recover and to commit to a program when you feel like you're the problem, when you feel like this is
Yeah.
on me. So, we have to start there. My physical therapy session looks very different from a traditional physical therapy setting
Yeah.
because we're going to talk a lot. Like, we're going to do a lot of
Yeah.
talk therapy
Yeah.
because we have to get to the root. My patients, we're together for an hour every week or twice a week. We talk a lot anyway, but we have to get to the root of the issues because if you don't think that you're worthy of healing, then
Mm.
you're not going to commit to the
Mhm.
activities that we've identified that's going to promote the healing.
Mm,
You're not going to really do the home exercises. You're not going to buy into the sessions. You're really just going to think, this is my fault. And
mm,
so eliminating that is key. Once we break down that barrier and
mm,
we work through the physical processes for exercising, stretching, it's all about getting people to let go of these beliefs and ideas about what their physical capabilities are, and
mm,
understanding that you don't have to
mm,
perform like you did in your
mhm,
20s.
mhm,
Perhaps you could if that's something you really want to focus on, but it doesn't denote your value.
mhm,
So it's
mhm,
okay to let that go. But
mhm,
we really need to hyper focus on the issue. And the
mm,
issue is this ankle is weak, or the ligaments are very stretched out, or there's an imbalance, or the foot posture is off because you've been flat footed your whole life. Like I
mhm,
want to find the problem and then work toward the optimal solutions,
mm,
not blame and worry about what you used to do, what you used to be able to look like, or all
yeah,
the things.
yeah,
So that's a big part of it. And then again, letting go of the beliefs that this
mm,
is a problem because I did it or because I gained weight. And then also safely reintroducing exercise for a lot of my clients
yeah, that
who
was a
are,
question I had. So many folks have just such a ruptured relationship with exercise
yes.
and movement, and like inviting people into their bodies with you. I'm sure lots of stuff can come up there.
Absolutely. And I see this on both sides with the physical therapy and with the coaching, because a lot of my
Mm,
coaching, my clients do choose to come to me. So I see some of those people in person as well. And yes, that is such a process to let go and feel safe. So my space right now, I don't have a mirror up in my space. I will have one, but it will be a curtain in front of it, because
mm,
some people
mm,
are not ready to look at
yeah,
themselves. Some people that come to me for physical therapy or coaching are not ready to introduce movement. So we have to ease into it. And
right.
movement has to be
Mm,
very non traditional. So I start a
mm,
lot of my clients with this idea of, let's think about movement as a source of joy only.
mm,
I don't care about calories, sweating,
mm.
duration,
Yeah, like any of those
frequency.
metrics, like setting those aside.
We're just tossing them in the trash because they are insignificant at this point in the game.
Mhm.
And some of them will remain insignificant forever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we start with joy. So I always have clients write a list of activities that bring them joy that just happen to require movement. I have
Mm,
them consider things that they're sitting down but still moving, lying down, still moving. I've had people say things like sex. I've had people say
mhm.
gardening or dancing or swimming
Yeah.
or walking in nature. And they don't see these things as exercise because mainstream diet culture says,
It
well, if you're
doesn't
not
count or
sweating,
something.
yeah, it doesn't count
Mhm.
if you're not sweating or doing it for at least 30 to 45 minutes. And
Mm,
everything counts. And so starting there, and then that's where our movement starts. So that's what we're
mm,
not doing bicep curls or treadmills, or and some of my clients get to that, but that's not appropriate for everyone. So it's really about safely and in a trauma informed way introducing movement back to people who
mm,
have such trauma around it, have such
mhm.
fears around it, or have very much abused movement
Yeah,
in
yeah,
their day-to-day lives. So it's a process and it's slow, and I
yeah,
make no apologies for the
yeah.
fact that we're dealing with issues that people have been managing for 10, 20, 30, 40 years sometimes. We
Mhm.
are not going to get you back on track in 4 sessions. No, we're going to be working
Yeah,
together for as long as you can tolerate in many
yeah.
cases,
Mhm,
because we want to get to the root of the problems and give you solutions. And then when we're done, I want you to still have a toolbox to go to so that you
mhm.
can continue on that health
Yeah.
journey. So,
It's a beautiful invitation to inhabiting one's body, being embodied, I think. And
yeah.
with someone like you who has the expertise of the posture and the mechanics and the strength and all of those pieces, but really doing that in a way that can come alongside with joy as like the
Yeah.
centerpiece of all of it. I think that's just such a beautiful way to consider doing this. And I don't know how common it is for folks in recovery from eating disorders or in larger bodies to really be referred to a physical therapist as a part of their holistic healing. Is that unique?
It's not common enough, but
But so
that's
beneficial. I could see
it
that.
is. And it's the missing key. And what that's what I've learned. Once I created this niche, I spent a lot of time getting to know the directors at the treatment facilities here in Charlotte, because there are several,
Mm,
and almost educating them in formal lunches educating them on where my role is. And most of them eyes like were wide open. Oh my God, I've never,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of injuries that people actually get as a result of
Yes.
long-term eating
Yes.
disorders. And you cannot go in a traditional physical therapy clinic
Mhm.
when you're in recovery from eating. You can, but it is going to be very trauma inducing. It's not going to be a healing space for you. And so, this being a very unmet need that people maybe didn't realize, I'm
Mhm.
still in the process of letting people know that's what I do and what I offer.
Yeah.
It's becoming a bit more popular in this area with regard
Mhm.
to people knowing that I offer this service,
Mhm.
but I am the
Yeah.
only one to my knowledge in the Charlotte or in the North Carolina area who
Yeah.
offers this specific service. And I'm happy to do it because it's a missing key, because people
Mhm.
need to heal and recover, but they can't do that if they're going to damage their mental or emotional health in the process. So
Mhm.
that's where I see my role, the missing link between, because I can't talk about the mental health portion of the eating disorder. That's not where I've trained.
Mhm.
I can't dig into the nutrition and from the dietetic standpoint, but I can help you with movement because I know what movement
Yes.
should look like and feel like, and I know how to
Yeah.
offer it in a safe way. So, as a way to be prepared for that, I've done lots of reading and training and courses and continuing
Mhm.
education and gone to conferences on eating disorders and trying to really understand it so that I can continue to provide that support. But yeah, it's a space where a lot of people don't know exists. So, a big part of my advocacy is that letting people know this
Yes.
is a
Yes.
thing that people can benefit from.
Absolutely. I think about, so I've been in recovery now for a little over 15 years from my eating disorder, and
Awesome.
exercise was such a behavior for me,
Right.
really punishing and punitive in the
Hmm.
disorder. And so when I went through my treatment, it was really focused on food, right? Like
Yeah.
fixing my relationship with food. But all these other components of how the eating disorder impacted my body were not touched. And I think
Right.
movement was one of those. So, like, the directive from my treatment team at the time was, you can't move anymore. I got
That's what they
discharged.
do.
No one talked to me about it again. And truthfully, I was a little bit scared to move for a long time.
I've
And
heard that a million times.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just like it felt like a slippery slope. So I'm just not going to do it. And as my
Yeah.
body changed, like my relationship with movement changed too. And so I just think it's such an opportunity to like really tackle this, and in a way
Yeah.
like we help other folks recover within the relationship with food or their body. Let's focus on your relationship with movement. Like,
Yep.
let's really
Absolutely.
reclaim that.
Yeah. Yep. And it's been a joy to meet that need, because you're right. Everyone I've worked with has said that. There's
Mm.
nobody to talk through what movement looks like now.
Yes.
It's just don't move. And
Yes.
then when you're done, okay, figure it out on your own. That's
Yeah.
basically what you're left to. And
Right.
it's scary. It's very
Yeah.
scary. It 100% is a slippery slope for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And then, then we know intellectually movement is good for our bodies. That's why we have
Mhm.
joints. That's why we have muscles. We
Mhm.
need it in some form,
Yeah.
but we don't know what that looks like because
Mhm.
diet culture has really cornered the market. They have monopolized movement for most of us in the mainstream setting. And
Mhm.
when I made my transition into this new way of living, I stopped working out for 3 months.
Mhm.
I couldn't identify my why. I couldn't identify what I enjoyed. I couldn't
Mhm.
identify something that felt good enough to stick with. And I would try something and then get a try, and then because there was so much diet talk within so
Mhm.
many traditional workout, it was so activating or
Yeah.
triggering for me. I just couldn't do it. So a lot of the work that I do now with other people is pulling directly from my personal experience in
Mhm.
that transition, in that process. And I'm in a place now where I work out pretty consistently 3, 4 days a week. It's typically through the Peloton app. I don't have the bike,
Mhm.
but their apps, because they have 5 and 10 and 15 minute workouts. I don't
Mhm.
work out for long periods of time
Mhm.
unless I feel a significant pull, like I
Mhm.
have this burst of energy and I really want to get it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't force myself through anything. I go based on what I'm feeling in the moment, and
Mhm.
it's about joy. And then I always am like, I need a break from this for a while. I'm just going to go outside. And I do the same thing I tell my clients to do. What do you like to do that just happens to require movement? Go do that thing, because you need to move,
Mhm.
but you also need to focus on your mental and emotional well being. And
Mhm.
so for me, movement is about how much bang for my buck. In the past, it would be like, how many calories can I burn, or
The
how much,
equation, right? Mhm.
but now it's like, how much other stuff can I address during this movement time? Can I have relationship building with a friend or my kids?
Mhm.
Can I have the joy of bird watching at the same time? Like, I want it to be coupled with something else that touches on another part of me, because a big part of my work is helping people understand that you're so much more than a body,
Mhm.
and hyper focusing on your physical health through exercise and eating
Mhm.
all day every day can just be very problematic, and it's not speaking to the whole of you. It was my process, and it helped me. And so I try to help other people fill that gap and find the way find movement that feels right to them and feels good, and hold space for when it changes, because it will. Just like your weight will change,
Yes.
your
Yeah.
preferences will change. You will get burnt out on one thing. It's like eating the same thing every day. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Maybe then because you don't want to think,
Uh,
but then eventually you can't do that. Like, you have to hold the space for yourself to change and shift, and your
mhm.
preferences to change and shift. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. I won't say physical therapy is easy, because it's not by any means, but
Yeah. Uh-huh.
some straightforward physical therapy, when you've been doing it a while, can start to get pretty easy. You
Mhm.
make your predictions, you give your exercises, you make some shifts.
Oh, sure.
This is so different.
This is so client-centered, and you're looking at people holistically, not just their body, and you're assuming that things will
Yes.
change, and
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing, that's just a given, and you can work with that.
Yeah, but I love it because it's so dynamic, and it helps people in the long term so much more. So,
I really hear so much flexibility in what you're offering there, and even
yeah.
just putting out there that for some people, like you said, you had to take an extended break from movement. I had to do that
Yeah.
too, years actually.
Yeah.
And it's changed now, but just giving yourself the spaciousness for that, I think, is really healing in and of
Mhm.
itself.
It
Like
is. That's the
intentionally
whole
not
point.
moving.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're the type of person, like you said, that use exercise as this punishment, this requirement, this I must check the box. It
Mhm.
can feel very overwhelming to just be like, I'm not going to move.
Mhm.
You're like, but wait, what? I'm not going to
Mhm.
move. We have to move, right, to get up and walk and go places. But I'm not going to do structured exercise, and
Mhm.
I'm going to see what happens. And the challenge in that is, when that happens, for a lot of us, our bodies change. And then it's reestablishing a good
Yeah.
relationship with those changes, and not feeling like, see, this is the problem. There's a
Yeah,
lot
gotcha.
there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, maintaining that flexibility around it, and being open to and welcoming the changes that come as a result.
Mhm.
And that has been my healing journey, is to make peace with whatever my body looks like, whatever size or weight or shape it settles at, when I am being true to myself, when I am eating and moving intuitively, when I am managing my mental health and going to therapy and meditating and praying and loving the people in my life and
Mhm.
taking care of myself from a holistic standpoint, wherever my body settles as a result of those things, that must mean that's where my body needs to be, and
Mhm.
not fighting it. And I spent my whole life fighting it, my whole life saying, this
Mhm.
couldn't be right. You've got to be right. I need to lose
Mhm.
10 more pounds. There's fat on my stomach. I can't, it's like, saying
Mhm.
it now, it sounds silly, but I understand, and I have a lot of empathy for people who are
Yeah,
still there, because a
yeah,
lot of us are.
yeah.
So I get it,
Mhm.
but it's beautiful now to look back and know there was never anything wrong with my body.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was believing the lie that I was
Mhm.
told, like everybody else.
Tell us a little bit about your body image coaching. So this is a
Mhm.
big offering that you do across people can be from anywhere. They don't have to
Yeah.
be local. So talk to us a little bit about what that aspect of your practice is like.
Yeah, I love that. Scheduling is harder, right? When you're on a 12-hour time difference, but we make it work, and I love that. So the coaching is focused in three areas. It's general health, there's body image, and there's movement. And so you don't have to pick one. I have the offers for whatever you need. But typically I see people for 6 week sessions, or I call them 6 sessions. Some people like them weekly. Some people like to break them up and do
Mhm.
them every other week. And that's actually better for some people, because it gives them more time to implement the things that we talk about. So I offer the 6 sessions or the 12 sessions. I typically do the 12 sessions with people who are new to this world of anti
Mhm.
diet health, and it's
Okay.
going to take a lot more convincing, a lot more
Some
research,
education and foundational.
yes, a lot more foundational pieces. The 6 session package I typically get for people who've been in this world, who are like, maybe it's just the movement piece. I have never figured out how to implement that,
Mhm.
or I'm just really struggling with my body image. So they don't need as much of that foundation, but they need that work. The sessions, again, if you're local, I've scheduled them in person, but if you're not, then we are meet virtually every week or two. And there's a lot of talking, digging into your history with your body, with movement, talking through issues and concerns. My goal is never obviously to re-traumatize people. So
Mhm.
it's just sharing what you feel comfortable in each setting, sharing about your history and your body and your movement and all those things. And then we start to attack the myths associated with what our bodies look like, what our bodies can do. We've gotten to a place with body positivity where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what your body looks like. And people
Mhm.
start to internalize that. But
Yeah.
we are really still lost in this mindset of what my body can and can't do. So loss of abilities is
Ability.
a
Yeah.
really big thing for people, and
Yes.
it really takes a toll on people's identities and their self-worth when
Mhm.
they lose abilities. And so normalizing this idea that if you live long enough you are probably going to lose some abilities, and it doesn't make you less of a human, less of a person, less worthy of love or kindness or respect. And so a lot of the work we do is like that inner child work, like talking, pretend you are
Mhm.
the little version of you. How would you talk to her about movement and
Mhm.
exercise? That's how we have to treat ourselves. And sometimes it's pretending you're the old version of you, like you're your mom as she's
Mhm.
getting older, or your grandma. Would you berate them for not getting in their steps today? No. So
Mhm.
love on yourself the same way you would love on the more fragile version of yourself. Because you're still that little girl. One day you'll be that older woman
Absolutely.
or man. Just a lot of self compassion and a lot of self kindness and a lot of positive self talk. I do a lot of affirmations, a lot of affirmational training. The journal that I created is all affirmations. It's like a
Mm.
30-day devotional, but affirmation where you have space to write what it looks like for you and how you can implement it
Mhm.
into your life. And I use that journal with my clients a lot. But I have found that to be, which is so weird to say because I decided to be a physical therapist at 16. So I knew it and I did it and I was, but
Wow.
I have found the coaching side of my business to be even more impactful than the physical therapy and to just
Wow.
touch me in a way that
Wow.
even physical therapy doesn't. And I've seen people like go from car accidents, strokes, like no
Yeah.
movement to like running marathons. And that has been like
Wow.
beautiful and it still holds a special place in my heart. But this
Yeah.
coaching,
Mm.
and I think it's because we're going against the grain here. And I work primarily with women, open to all, but I work with a lot of women.
Mhm.
And as women, we are just taught to live outside of our bodies. We are taught not
Mhm.
to embody anything,
Yeah.
not to be proud of our bodies, not to speak up, not we let people say negative things about our bodies and then we turn around and do the same thing. And
Yeah.
so this work to me is really about liberation,
Yeah.
and there's something so like it touches me in my soul when I
Yeah.
know
Me
someone
too.
is free from that stuff. So
Mhm.
I love this work. I
Yeah.
People talk about retirement. I don't know that I would ever retire from the coaching aspect, especially virtually, because like why would I do
Incredible.
that? I love this. I love this for people. And every time you get someone's mind to change a little bit, it impacts everybody that they are around, their children, grandchildren,
Yeah.
sibling. And so we're just lighting each other up and spreading it
Mhm.
across the world. So I love it.
I love your passion. Any person who works with you, I'm sure, is just so benefited and transformed by their work with you.
Thank you so much. I hope so.
One last question for you, Dr.
Mhm.
Lisa. What does it mean for you to take up space in your own life right now?
I love that question. And we say this all the time: take up space, take up physical space, right? Don't feel like you got to
Mhm.
shrink yourself and go on diets and be smaller, all of that. It means that. But I think for me in this particular season of my life,
Mhm.
taking up space is meaning to me like being the most authentic version of you. And
Yeah.
if that means going against the grain, if that means speaking up when something is not right, when everybody else is silent, if that means just taking a stance and just being like, no, no, setting a boundary, making a decision that like I'm doing this for me because
Mm.
I have to take care of me first. And it might not benefit you and you might not like it and you might judge me, but
Mhm.
I'm going to take up space. So taking up space is about just being authentic to who I really am as a person
Yeah.
and not letting everything around me confuse
Mhm.
me or
Mhm.
change my mind. So
I love that so much.
thank you.
As we wrap up here, Dr. Lisa, if folks want to find you and see what you're up to, see your different coaching work and all the great social media you're creating, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can always go to my website. It's just healthyfit.com, and fit is spelled PHIT. But I live on Instagram. That's the place I like to be. My handle is at healthyfit, and the link on that page will take you to pretty much everything that I have going on right now. I have a course out. It's called It's Not You, It's the Diet, and it's the 7-step method for breaking up with diet culture. I have the Body Respect Journal on Amazon, and then I have the one-on-one coaching offerings for 6 or 12 sessions. I do typically do group coaching, but I haven't reopened that just yet. I have to have the interest to do the group. People prefer individual one-on-one. And if you're in North or South Carolina, you need physical therapy in person or virtually, you can reach out to me through my website for that.
Amazing. I'll link all of those resources in our show notes so people can find you
Awesome.
really quickly. Thanks
Perfect.
again, Dr. Lisa, for being here. Thanks for your passion and your work and advocacy in this space. You're doing such amazing things. And to everyone else listening, thanks for being here. And I hope you all find some space for yourself this week. Thank you for listening to Taking Up Space. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it to be a resource for you in your own embodiment, healing, and body liberation journey. I hope you can continue the conversation with me over on social media by sharing your thoughts, offering your ideas and suggestions for future episodes, or just connecting. You can find me on Instagram at Inner Atlas Therapy. If you liked this episode and want to support the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show in your preferred podcast platform. And share this episode with a friend. This ensures that more people can find the pod and will amplify our message of body liberation for all. If you haven't checked it out yet, I have a free Taking Up Space workbook available. This workbook will have you engage in self-reflection and embodied practices as you navigate your own journey of taking up space. You can find this free resource on my website, inneratlastherapy.com. I'll also link in the show notes some additional resources I've developed in my online shop to help you deepen into your own embodiment, healing, and body liberation work. Thanks again for being here. And until next time, I hope you join me in the resistance and find some ways to take up space this week. I'll see you next time.